Morality in games is generally a hit or miss thing. Either you're doing good things or bad deeds in order to progress your character down a certain path. In some cases, this can be done well. Games like Mass Effect do a good job of creating environments, choices, and dialogues that will satisfy different playstyles and keeping a dynamic nature of choices still alive. But what about a game where your choices are bad or worse? Nothing is good. There are no grey areas, just choices to make for your own survival. On a surface level, Spec Ops: The Line is a very generic shooter. Even the box art is generic, but chucking it into a pile with countless other Call of Duty and Gears of War clones will be doing the game a massive injustice. It bears a weight on its shoulders that will be carried with even the most hardened gaming veterans. While mechanically the gameplay is kinda standard, it's just a duck in and out of cover shooter. There are some interesting contextual moments with raining sand down on enemies, but for the most part it feels pretty by the books. That's not to say it plays bad though, don't get me wrong. If you can look past the Call of Duty exterior, there is a lot to be uncovered here. When you first arrive in the sandstorm battered Dubai, it already feels like it's going to be your average cover-based third-person shooter. 3 tough American guys in a pretty standard setting. As things progress, however, it starts to feel a little bit off when you witness the death of a CIA agent at the hands of a fellow American soldier, that you realize Spec Ops: The Line is more than just your typical shooter. Here you're given a choice: let the killer go or shoot him. Seems pretty straightforward, and for all intents and purposes, it is. This scene serves as a good introduction to how much weight the morality can hold here. The difference in calls is simple. Either the now rogue 33rd Squad will be waiting for you if you let him live, or they won't if you kill him. Neither of these choices have a positive outcome, but they really do drive home the ideal of survival. What would you do to survive? It's made clear early on that in Dubai, it's kill or be killed. Your first encounter is from a group of survivors questioning who you are. They aren't actively aggressive at first.
We're looking for survivors. Why? So you can kill us too?
They don't want to kill you, but if they need to, they will. This is still a shooter and still adheres to the conventions of shoot first and ask questions later, but it all feels intentional. The game knows this and works towards it. Spec Ops: The Line is a statement. It's not one of anti-war like many may think. It's a reality check slapped in the face of most modern shooters. War is hell. It's not glamorous and it's not fun. Fuck, this game isn't even fun to play. It's emotionally draining, and by the end of it, you're not satisfied, but relieved it's over. As bad as that sounds, it's an experience, and one that I think is important having. It's a character study on surviving hell on Earth. By the later half of the game, the strike team is sick of each other.
You are Delta operators. Fucking act like it!
This makes all the shitty choices you've made up to this point feel that little bit more impactful. I know this is a minor thing to hang on to, but it does give more significance to the situation and the choices that have led you here. Even as you progress, the menu screens get more and more grim. The flag serves as a symbol for Walker's sanity and morality. The more you play through, the worse things get, and that's reflected every time you launch the game. Even the loading screens between missions will remind you of what you've been doing, and reflecting the state of the squad, even breaking the fourth wall in subtle and not so subtle ways. There's a fine line to walk when you want to emotionally impact your players. Sometimes developers can leave it up to the player to discover it on their own terms. If the player misses an emotionally impactful scene, then that's on them and their experience. Other times it's so ham-fisted that any feeling that may have been invoked by the player is drowned out by forced camera angles and button prompts. There's a scene that plays with this line pretty well about halfway through Spec Ops. Seemingly, your only help out of this nightmare is dead, but left you with a map to go to the gate. When you arrive there, it is swarmed with rogue agents. There's a mortar loaded with white phosphorus, and you give the command to use it.
Okay, prepare to fire. That in order? Yeah, it is.
Now this sequence is a bit tough to play through already because earlier you narrowly avoided a phosphorus attack, allowing you to see the damage and slow painful death it causes. But you keep getting shit thrown at you by these bastards, so it's time to unleash hell. For me, it didn't feel good raining down hellfire on soldiers, but it felt necessary. They're in your way, they've gone rogue, and you just want to get out alive. So when the end of the sequence hit, I was fueled up, ready to just get the fuck out. I saw this huge cluster of people as enemy reinforcements, so I didn't hold back and I just unleashed. Only once I finished walking through the devastated area and saw I had killed refugees that were being escorted to safety, it hit me, and it hit me hard. I had to walk away from my computer for a bit. This really felt like it had extreme weight to it. Despite the fact it's a forced moment, there is no don't fire white phosphorus choice. I was still invested enough that the moment had a deep impact on me as a player. Contrast this with Quantic Dream's 2010 Heavy Rain. In the intro, after losing your son, Jason, you press X to scream his name in a futile search for him. This is meant to elicit an emotional response from the player, but ends up feeling jarring and goofy. First of all, it's too early in the game to have any real attachment to these characters. Secondly, it's too in your face with the X prompt to feel like you want to search for Jason on your own will. You kinda end up pressing X because the game tells you to. These moments are both the same in terms of the game forcing them upon you, but the build up and execution are on the opposite ends of the emotional spectrum. If you can build up a forced moment in just the right way, it'll feel more genuine. Never at one point did I feel like the game was forcing itself down my throat. Everything I did because they were presented to me. And honestly, I just wanted to get the crew home. I had the best interests of everyone at mind, and everything was just survival. Nothing personal against anyone who had to die in the process. The journey wasn't enjoyable, but I wanted to see it through the entire time. Ultimately, all your choices won't lead down different roads to multiple endings. Everything will make sense when you get there, and I think the last few chapters are worth not spoiling for anyone who still may want to play the game. There are multiple endings, but like I said, you'll see when you get there. The other choices, however, rather than having to think about what to do for the end goal, they're all situational choices, and that is important for the game's theme of survival. Your choices will affect the moment and not the overall story, and it works. While Spec Ops: The Line isn't a perfect example of how morality should be done in a game, when looking for a morality system that is not just good versus evil, what it brings to the table is interesting and will challenge you to think about how you would react in the given situations presented.